That's 3 in a row for the Indiana Pacers. They beat the Portland Trailblazers in their house to get to 9-10 and destroy the game. The Tyrese Haliburton Pascal Siakam duo shining in a win. We'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Thursday and happy Thanksgiving, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony Feast. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, my last name's East, but that's funny. It's Thanksgiving. We're talking about Pacers Blazers, a win for the Pacers. They're third in a row. They're 9-10. Still not great, but certainly a good surge. They needed to take care of business on this homestand. So far, so good. And specifically to me, the story of the game, the Tyrese Haliburton Pascal Siakam duo absolutely taking over. Big picture, zoomed in picture, however you want to look at that duo and what they did in this game. There's a storyline to tell. Good win for the Pacers, who stunk early, down 10 in the second quarter. Much to talk about with their changes. Other players who stepped up for the now 9-10 Pacers. And I understand, and I've even said this on this show this week, these are not impressive wins. Right? They won by 4 against the banged-up Pelicans. It took them a while to separate from the worst team in the league in the Wizards, and they were losing by double digits in the first half of this game against the banged-up Blazers. That said, wasn't like the whole problem with the Pacers last year that they lost a lot of these games, right? It's, again, still the quality of these wins isn't something anyone's going to be psyched about, but certainly wins that they needed and got. Let's talk about the biggest thing of this game to me, the duo of Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam. Tremendous game from both players, box score wise, and how they closed out the Blazers. I want to talk about both those things because box score zoomed out as far as possible wise. 28 points for Haliburton, which in its own way is a big story. That's 21 on Sunday, 34 Monday, 28 today, plus a good second half against Milwaukee. He's doing a lot of good things, and I want to get to one of them later. He was great. Scoring again, distributing was good. The gravity was good. Blazers put their best defender, Toumani Camara, on him most of the night, and Haliburton still was able to wiggle free and put pressure on the Portland defense. Pascal Siakam, 29 points in this game. That ties his season high. I actually can't believe he hasn't had a 30-point game yet. That almost feels wrong. He was excellent. He was scoring from all over the floor, making big shots. The trouble the Blazers had with Siakam that stood out to me was Camara, their best wing/perimeter defender, was on Haliburton. And they started Deni Avdija as well. And Avdija's a good player. I really like Deni Avdija. They traded 2 first-round picks for the guy for a reason. But he is not like the best at defending that kind of Siakam-sized forward, right? And so they really didn't have a good answer. Portland didn't. They started DeAndre Ayton at the 5 and then played a bunch of guards. And then off the bench, they played some okay players with some size, like Jabari Walker and Delano Banton, but they aren't also very equipped to defend a matchup like that. So Siakam, for much of the night, had matchup advantages, something that is a big deal for him. That's why he led the team with 20 shots. They turned to him all night for once instead of getting away from him in the second half, a concern they've had this season. That was great, right? That mattered, and that was a big part of him going off for 29 was there was no matchup that he really couldn't handle in this game. And then, of course, Haliburton doing well is a big deal in its own way. His 28 was impressive, as were the assists. 7 rebounds as well for Tyrese Haliburton. Before I get to really this duo, I do want to say one more stat about Haliburton because I just put this in a story. I think this is the stat I will use to talk about the indicator that he might be turning things around. Again, might, because the quality of opponents in all home games matters here. In the Pacers' first 15 games of the season, Haliburton had 2 games where he took 10 threes in a game. Boston, when he had a double-double and they won, and New York, when he had 35 points and they won. Those are the only 2 games he took 10 threes, right? He has now taken 10 threes 4 games in a row, and it just so happens this looks like the most sustained stretch of good play from him of the season. He really seems to be able to finally create separation on the perimeter to get open for these kind of shots, ones that he is very good at and has, transformed himself in the Pacers offense by being able to make, right? So that's a very big deal that Haliburton is taking threes. Obviously, making them is massively significant given how poorly he was at making them early in the season. But I think the taking number is important. So those 2 context things matter for what I'm about to discuss, which is, yes, those 2 players are both very good in this game. 57 is their most combined points of the season by far. They had not even hit 50 in a game yet this year. Haliburton's best nights, the 35 against New York, for example, Siakam had 14 in that game. When Siakam had 29 for the first time, Haliburton only had 17. Tonight, they were both awesome for the first time. And in the fourth quarter, they dominated together. That's the zoomed-in version of what made them so good in this game. Obviously, the stats are impressive. If they had 28 and 29 spread out, that still would have been a huge story given how their season has gone. The fourth quarter, the Pacers scored 25 points. Tyrese Haliburton scored 12 of them. Pascal Siakam scored 9 of them. You can do quick math. That's 21 points of the 25. Quentin Jackson scored 2 points in the fourth quarter on a crazy alley-oop from Tyrese Haliburton. Underhand lob, just got it perfectly above the rim for Jackson to throw it down, and he slammed it in. That's 23 of the 25 points. Only 2 points the entire fourth quarter, winning time. Pacers need one. Third in a row for the first time this season, keeping ground in the Eastern Conference, getting back on track after their 6-10 crummy start. Those two got 23 of the 25 points scored or created. The other two were Ben Mathurin scoring on an offensive rebound from Quentin Jackson and then a pick and roll with Myles Turner. The other three guys stepped up for that basket, and that was huge because that was the basket that came right as Portland made it as close as they did the whole first quarter. 2-point game when Mathurin hit that shot. Huge. Bennedict Mathurin we'll talk about later. He was clutch as it comes in this game. So in the fourth quarter, chips are down. Pacers need the win so bad. Their stars did everything except for one basket. They were awesome. And when this game got really tight, I already described that Mathurin bucket, right? Mathurin hits that jumper I just described on the screen from Turner with 7:40 to go. That made it 100-96. Delano Banton scored 21 seconds later. It was 100-98. That means for the last 7 minutes and 18 seconds, Tyrese Haliburton and Pascal Siakam scored or assisted on every single Pacers basket the rest of the game. And they carried down the stretch. Haliburton hit a 3 after that Banton layup to put the Pacers up 5. The next basket for the Pacers was a Siakam 3, assisted by Haliburton. And then a Siakam turnaround fadeaway in a lane, assisted by Tyrese Haliburton. That got them up 8. Those two linked up for all those plays to create those baskets. The next play was the Jackson alley-oop, but then it was all Siakam and all Haliburton scoring. They scored every basket for the last 3 minutes and 15 seconds of the game. They dominated this game. They were scoring, they were passing, they were putting pressure on the defense in a way that opened up stuff for other guys. They were drawing defenders in a way that made them more like they just did everything. They opened up the whole floor. And then when it mattered and the Pacers needed someone to step up because their offense got bogged down, 25 points isn't a great quarter. Like their best stretch was mid-second and early third. Those two were awesome. And late when it was close, like I said, it became a 2-point game. The Pacers went to a very similar action or a very similar setup over and over and over. Tyrese Haliburton up high, Pascal Siakam high ball screen. And they got a good shot from it all the time. And that's what I was trying to ask about after the game and get more detail on is how they felt that two-man game progressed because the trade happens and they play that game. And this is fitting synergy, by the way. The debut of Siakam for the Pacers against Portland, that game that Tyrese Haliburton returned too early from a hamstring injury. Their best game together this season against Portland. Perfect synergy. Symmetry, wrong word. Well, I guess they both work. As time passes, it's been almost exactly 10 months since the trade. And they are pitching it to each other, and sometimes Haliburton screening for Siakam, and most of the time Siakam screening, and they're getting good shots out of it. So much so that Portland knew it was coming. They were putting pressure on Haliburton so far that Siakam set a screen, and Haliburton was standing in the corner of the half court and sideline. And they were like, yeah, whatever, we'll go to it. And it worked, and they got a good shot, and they won the game. And those two carried in a way that, like, that is the dream vision for what they can be is if there's a game like this where Siakam's matchup just can't hold him, right? Kamara was on Haliburton this whole time I'm describing. So Portland's at best second best defender was on Pascal Siakam this whole time. Great. He'll set some screens, force that defender to either trap or have to rotate back to him. And if that does work out, great. That means someone else is open. That worked the whole time. And if not, if they switch, well, guess what? Tyrese Haliburton's now not guarded by Kamara. He can do whatever he wants. And that's possible because he's taking and making threes. And so you have to guard him really far from the basket. And just when they are both clicking and playing their best and have the right matchups, the synergy is awesome. That was the dream when this trade was made for the Pacers. And they hoped they'd see it against Portland last year. They lost that game. Haliburton re-aggravated the injury. This time, they both were awesome and closed out a game. The closest it got in the last couple minutes was 5 after free throws with from Scoot Henderson, I believe, with like 30 seconds to go. So this does register as a clutch win, but the Pacers almost didn't need it to be a clutch win because Haliburton and Siakam were that good. But fittingly, Tyrese Haliburton free throws after Scoot Henderson's free throws were the thing that put it away. Ben Mathurin, a huge rebound to seal things late in this game. Massive for those two to get that done. Massive for the Pacers to get this win after really an awful first 20 minutes of play. That might be a little far. 15 minutes of play in this game. They finally got some life. They finally turned things around, and their stars carried them to the finish line. That's what stars do. In a yucky game when your team's not playing great, and the day before Thanksgiving can be a weird day in the NBA, they got it done. Big win for the Pacers. Those two are a big reason why, but not the only reason why. Two other guys shined. Lots of other players chipped in. And the Pacers turned things around by focusing on one key stat after halftime. Much more to discuss from this game as we continue here on Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, though, we have to talk about the great people over at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action, jumping on the NBA hoops with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. How about that? If you win, that is on the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and they give you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL and NBA all in one place, because it happens to everybody. When you get that hunch in the middle of a game, you can go check out the latest stats from the action. You can go check out live play-by-play from the game so you can see what's going on, who's doing well, who's not, and so much more. And that's all right on the same page where you place your bets. How about that? That's on FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Again, that's on FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen has to be Locked On Blazers. Mike Richmond, the pass-first point guard, as he says, absolutely crushes it covering a team that's been rebuilding for a few years now. I am super jealous of his solo hosting skills. Check him out for the Portland angle of this. Scoot Henderson, good game. Anthony Simons was hooping, especially in the third quarter. DeAndre Ayton returned. Lots of stuff for him to really dive into from the Portland side. Also, I should have said this earlier, but one, I'm in a different location. Lots of people staying at my house. It's the holidays, so I can't use the office for this one. So hello, I'm downstairs in front of my many framed puzzles. And so I hope this sounds okay. I know it looks decent enough, although my computer's stacked on a bunch of shipping boxes. Hopefully it sounds okay. It's in a much more airy room without as many doors. Anyway, those two, Siakam and Haliburton, excellent. Two other guys, huge for the Pacers. Ben Mathurin, who I promised I'd talk about and definitely will, and Myles Turner, and for different reasons than normal in Turner's case. 24 for Ben Mathurin, 15 for Myles Turner. Before we get into any specifics, that's 39 combined. You add that with what we got to see Haliburton and Siakam do. That's 96 points for the Pacers' best four offensive talents. That is the second most of the season. 113 against the Knicks with 35 for Haliburton, 38 for Mathurin, 26 for Turner, and 14 for Siakam. That was by far their best game as a quartet this season. Tonight, their second best, at least from a scoring perspective, but they chipped in in other ways tonight that make it a comparable game to that Knicks game, which to this day, to me, is still their highest quality win. They played very well. They won by 12 against a good team. So what made this all possible? What made this a great game? Because no one else scored double figures for the Pacers. They needed their best players to be their best players, and they were. Let's start with Myles Turner, who it's been rare this season that he has an awesome game where he's not lighting it up from three. He's had a lot of very good games without making threes. Tonight, he was very, very good to awesome without making his threes. 1 for 7 from deep, 6 for 10 on all of their shots. That's great. He actually had some punishing moments on Ayton in the lane, had a super forceful dunk, turning and just going straight up. Moses Brown had a dunk in this game. I think it was his only made shot. They did not turn to Moses Brown very much. Like, this is the kind of game where you don't need him, right? This is what I talked about for forever with the centers. I'm sorry to go on a tangent, but I just remembered this. Like, there was no backup center for the Blazers. They were so banged up. Jabari Walker was effectively their backup center. Great. If that's what the Blazers are going to do, you don't need to play Moses Brown. You can play Obi Toppin with Siakam, right? And that's why the signing, they try to put it off as long as possible because they can play Toppin as the backup 5 and see what they could do. Only 3.5 minutes for Moses Brown, but he did have one play where he caught the ball in space and was kind of patient, was in traffic, and he just jumped up and dunked. And, like, sometimes that's what Myles Turner needs to do. He did that. He's finishing well inside, battling with Ayton. 8 rebounds for Turner, 6 of them on the offensive end. 6. That's huge, right? Not typically a rebounding type that he gets. He was getting them. The Pacers in general were quite good on the offensive glass in this game. That's what the Blazers want to do. They're a crash team. They had 13. The Pacers had 19 offensive rebounds. That's so much that it's like, yeah, the ball kind of bounced your way, and that certainly happened at times. through this game, but Turner was good at corralling those and boxing out and having his presence be heard. The Pacers needed that kind of game from him and got it. 6 offensive rebounds, certainly a season high for him. In fact, that is tied for his best since the 2020-21 season. So 4 seasons where he has not gotten more than 6. Impressive night for him in that way, 8 in total. And his defensive impact was very strong in this game as well. 5 blocks and a steal and an assist, plus 22 in this game was Myles Turner, the tied for the highest of any Pacer, with the other guy we're going to talk about in this segment, Ben Mathurin. So normally Turner's best games this season have been he's either crushing a tiny matchup because the center is on Siakam, or he's raining in threes. Tonight, he didn't do either of those things, and he was still very good. Defensive impact, rebounding impact, more of what you'd consider traditional, air quotes, center stuff. He was great in that way. It was fun to talk to him after this game about all sorts of stuff that the Pacers did well with their best 4 players, and they needed him a lot. 38 minutes for Turner, 39-40 for Mathurin because they don't have any other wings, 38-12 for Siakam, 38-08 for Turner, 38-51 for Haliburton. That's what happens when they're their best scorers, and the Pacers really need to win. They relied on those guys. Wore them out. I mean, this might catch up at some point, but they need these wins right now. Turner was great in that way, and again, plus 22 clearly had a huge impact on this basketball game. Mathurin was the leading rebounder for the Pacers, though, as he has been many a time this season. He had 10 of them, a couple of them late to get the deal done. 3 assists for Ben Mathurin, which is always a nice mark for him. For me, no turnovers, 1 block. Those are all nice. 24 points on 16 shots. Terrific again for Mathurin. Got a little bit of a scoring groove back after a couple games. Not as good, not as effective. He had 2 just brutal misses against the Pelicans when he was playing 80 minutes in back-to-back nights. That made me think, oh, man, he might be gassed if he's missing that badly. And he had 1 miss in this game that made me think that might be the case, and then he really settled in. 3 of his 5 threes dropped. He had half of his shots. Nice game in general for Mathurin, obviously. 24 points and 10 boards is a great night. What really changed his night, he talked about this and Carlisle talked about this, was not that he had a bad game in the first half, but he was more effective in the second half. Really, the third quarter is where Mathurin got going, right? He had finished this game with 24. In the first half, he had 13 of those. And in the third quarter, he had 9 of them, right? So that was his best quarter of the game by far, is when he heated up. He hit his only 3 in that frame and hit 3 shots in total, plus 2 assists. They called 2 plays for him in a row, and he hit a 3, the only 3 he took that quarter, and a long 2. He played the whole frame, 12 minutes. And I think those 2 plays, one, got him engaged because, like, it's been documented and talked about with him a little bit how he's a lot more effective as a scorer when he knows the shot's supposed to be coming, or especially coming from him. There's less of a read to do. It's just what the play dictates, and he was very good in that moment. And then that kind of stuff just gets you engaged. And he's been working all season and doing a very good job of this, I might add, of trying to find ways to stay engaged in other ways when he isn't scoring as well. Well, that's defending, rebounding, which he's been great at, all that kind of stuff. But tonight, that really, I think, clicked him into gear, right? When he got those 2 plays called for him, they went his way, he finished, and then he turned a corner and was much more effective in every other way the rest of the game. On his way to another 20 and 10 night. He was also plus 22. And he's been like good all season, obviously. Bennedict Mathurin's been great all season. Exceeded my expectations for what this season could look like for him. They have needed him to be not a scorer type recently. With Haliburton turning the corner a little bit and Siakam being exceptional. Obviously, Mathurin scoring is a great thing. I don't want to say it's not. But what they've needed from him recently is a little different because they lost Ben Sheppard. And that's not to say that they have overlapping roles, but losing Ben Sheppard officially hit the point of like, oh man, they have no wings, right? Nembhard gone, Nesmith gone, Sheppard gone, and they missed Furphy on Monday with his ankle thing. He returned but barely played in this game. He was not as effective as he was in other games where I was impressed by his impact. They played Furphy 8 minutes and 35 seconds. And they played Jarris Walker 9 minutes and 44 seconds and got blasted, by the way, in those 9 minutes and 44 seconds. Mathurin played 39 minutes and 40 seconds. That's after playing 37 and a half minutes on Monday and 39 minutes on Sunday. Even the people who are the most strong, like NBA players should play every game and play every minute they can and blah, blah, blah. Like, obviously, everyone loves when the best players play a lot. Even I think those people would admit that that's a lot of minutes. A lot of minutes. They need Ben Mathurin to play a ton. They're just down too many wings. And the ones that are playing behind him haven't been particularly effective in this stretch. It's great to get Furphy back just to have another body to keep Mathurin off the floor a little longer if you can. But it's been hard for them to even do that. That is where I think they need Nembhard, Nesmith, Sheppard, whoever to come back the most. I mean, obviously they're good players. Like they need them back. But I think the most direct ripple effect that I'll be watching is how much that helps Mathurin just settle in. Like 33 minutes is perfect for him in terms of his efficiency, right? He played 25 minutes in Houston, but nobody played a lot because everybody got benched. The game before that, he played 32 minutes and 8 seconds in Toronto and had 28 points, right? Like that's his highest scoring game since that game he had 38 against New York, right? Like it just seems so natural in terms of the amount of, pretend your energy is on a scale of 1 to 10. Like if he can play 32 minutes at a 9 out of 10 energy, or 38 to 40 minutes at a 7, like what's better for the team? And so recently they have had no choice, but I think that he, and this is to credit him, he has stepped up in a major way with a massive demand of him. They need him to defend, they need him to rebound, they need him to be a role player, but sometimes a really important scorer and punish mismatches. And he's done all of it in this crazy minutes load that they've been forced to do. They don't have other options. Awesome. This is like awesome, just awesome Bennedict Mathurin stuff. Because we've known he can score for forever, and he's been scoring this year. And even in this stretch where he's been inefficient, right? 20% from 3 in Milwaukee, 6 for 18, 4 for 12, 2 games in a row after that, with a 1 for 10 combined from 3 in Washington, New Orleans. But I didn't think he was terrible in either of those games, right? Like last year, his rookie year, if those are his shooting stats, probably not a good Mathurin game. Tonight, of course, he made half his shots, but along the way, he's been still fine with that. 9 boards against the Wizards, 6 against Washington, and 4 assists that night, right? Atypical of him. I believe that is his season high, was that 4 assists, right? 20 and 9 against Milwaukee, despite not he got to the foul line a bunch, and he got 8 free throw attempts against the Wizards, right? He just keeps finding ways to be impactful, and he did again today. So impressed, right? For those of you who've heard me talk about him for forever, this is all the stuff that I thought would make him great for the Pacers in their current iteration of what they're trying to do and how he can fit. He's been awesome. Just awesome. So Myles Turner and Ben Mathurin also deserve credit. Again, 96 for the quartet, the second most they've chipped in as a group all season. And on a night where the role players were all pretty ineffective, except for one guy we'll talk about in a second, they needed all of them to be awesome, and they were 9 and 10. Not a good record, to be clear. But these are games the Pacers have lost as recently as last year, as recently as in Charlotte, right? The joke's been the same for forever. They lose to bad teams that are banged up and beat good teams that are healthy. This is that's what made this week look maybe different, is these are banged up bad teams. They've cleaned up so far. One more to go. Detroit on Friday. 4-0 homestand will be huge for the Pacers. Couple more things I want to touch on from this game. The biggest stat change that helped the Pacers, plus a couple specifically Quentin Jackson role players that I want to talk about to close out this Thanksgiving Locked On Pacers. Before we get to any of that, I want to talk to you guys about Skylight. Want to celebrate with or stay connected to the people who are far away? Are you missing them around the holidays? Or do you want them to be a part of your festivities from afar? Or do your loved ones live far away, but you wish they could be close to you, like so many people? Well, Skylight Frames is for you. And we've got the perfect gift for you, because Skylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone. Watch them appear in seconds. I should know about these. I love them. My grandparents have one and my parents have one. Super easy to set up. Takes like a minute at most. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos. There's a free Skylight mobile app. You can pop right in. No account or subscription required, which is great. The touchscreen is great. That's a game changer, because it cycles through all the photos in like a second or more. You can set that up too, but you can swipe through them on the touchscreen. You can tap to see new ones. You can tap to see the most recent ones. You can heart ones you like to say thank you to people who have sent them in. They have 2 sizes now, 10-inch and 15-inch frames. They look perfect in any room. They can stand up on their own, easily mount them to a wall. It's awesome. It's a great way to look at many different photos with just one frame. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, get $20 off your purchase of a Skylight frame when you go to skylightframe.com/LockedOnNBA. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/LockedOnNBA. Get $20 off your purchase now at skylightframe.com/LockedOnNBA. Back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day, or second listen. Locked On NBA, specifically Wednesday's episode, because it was me and Wes Goldberg talking about all sorts of fun stuff. Kevin Durant returning, me laughing at hilarious Wembanyama moments, and lots of other great NBA stuff. In the league tonight, I would say the biggest story is the Brooklyn Nets. Holy cow, they just went to the West Coast and beat the Kings and the Warriors and the Suns, and I'm missing one, but they were awesome. Locked On Nets, how are the Nets doing this? They're kind of good. impressive stuff from the Brooklyn Nets. And also, don't forget, Locked On Pacers has a free daily newsletter straight to your email inbox. You get writing from me. You get all these podcasts with more descriptive stuff and more other recent podcasts and national writing from Locked On Network people that we hired. It's really great. Everybody's liked it. It's free. Over 500 people now. Join them all. It's worth it. There's a QR code on the screen if you're on YouTube, or I can share the link if you need it. It's on the Twitter feed. Okay, let's close this out with a couple more things I want to touch on from this game, because it wasn't all pretty, obviously. Losing by 10 points in the second quarter to the Portland Trailblazers at home. Yikes, that's not good. The thing that was striking to me, besides their kind of inability to get anything going defensively, was turnovers were just brutal early. The Pacers finished this game with 12 turnovers. That's great. That sounds awesome. Why am I talking about turnovers? Because they all happened early. They only had 4 in the second half at all. And of those 12, I believe exactly half, 5, not 6. 5 of the 12 came in the first quarter. They were sloppy early. 2 from Haliburton, 1 from Quentin Jackson, 1 from Myles Turner, and 1 from McConnell. They were all critical timing, like right when the Blazers had just scored. So it felt like Pacers couldn't really chip at it. And the Blazers were the team turning it over a bunch in the first quarter. The other thing that's stacked on top of it with the Pacers' terrible defense in the first quarter is the turnovers leading to easy opportunities for the Blazers to spread out to shooters. Denny Avdia hit 1. Anthony Simons hit 2. It should have been a scary sign of things to come. Delano Banton hit 2. 6 threes in the first quarter for the Blazers, more than half of their average per game this season. So early, that was the Pacers' biggest problem. They were not defending the three-point line very well, a suggestion of disconnected defense, and they were turning it over way too much. Well, 5 turnovers in the first quarter, only 7 the rest of the way. That was, to me, the most noticeable turnaround for them, is taking care of the ball, just giving themselves chances, because against a team like Portland, who really wants to crash the glass, that's their thing. They're really good at offensive rebounding. They've got some size to do it. The Pacers were doing well. The Pacers had more offensive rebounds. And so when they got the turnover battle even or in their favor, it ended up being 12-14. Because of that and their offensive rebounding, they're able to take 7 more shots, which really helps you weather the storm against a team that's absolutely on fire from deep. So the Pacers took 94 shots to 87 for the Blazers, and they took more free throws in this game. So just more chances was really important for the Pacers with how hot Portland was from deep. Portland made 45.7% of their threes. Not a good shooting team, but they were feeling it tonight. But 6 of their 16 makes in the first quarter, right? And the Pacers did shoot well. They were over 40% from deep themselves, 13 for 32. But that was the key, the 2 biggest key turnarounds to me. And the Pacers stopped turning it over and gave themselves enough chances to shoot as much as Portland was. That helped them so much. And then even though Portland, they cooled off a lot, obviously, but not a ton from deep in this game, the Pacers were able to catch up with threes of their own from their stars. Quentin Jackson is going to just be a continuous shout-out guy, I think, on this podcast. Their 5th starter until further notice, until someone returns from injury. 32 minutes and 30 seconds. How many times have I said this exact line? So I'm going to repeat it. I'm sorry for you repeat listeners. Any two-way contract player, if they contribute to 1 win in a season, I think they have fulfilled their duties as a two-way contract player. That's already probably enough, right? That's more than you can ask of them. Enrique Freeman, congrats, he's already done it, right? Quentin Jackson has contributed to several, and they're asking a ton of him. He's always guarding the other team's best player, right? Sometimes Simon, sometimes Sharp, sometimes Scoot tonight. He fits in on offense, which is crazy to me. Not crazy, but which is very fascinating to me because, you know, with the Mad Ants and with the Wizards in the past, he had the ball a lot. With this team, he's off the ball a ton, right? 4 for 10. That's not awesome. But 5 rebounds, 4 of them on the offensive end, 4 assists, 2 steals, and a block, plus 13. The fact that they can trot out this two-way contract player who had played like 12 NBA games total entering this season and not just feel like, well, he's our best fitting player, but be like, oh, this is great, this will work fine, is so impressive and so huge for their season, right? Entering today, I was chatting with another media person about this, tracking the stat. Entering this season, Quentin Jackson had played 146 minutes in the NBA. He's already surpassed that this season. This was his 11th game. He played 12 in the NBA ever before the season. Like, they have needed him to do more than he's done in his entire career, like in 2 weeks. And he continues to just not look out of place at all. He's been quite good. This is huge for his future potentially if he keeps this up. I don't know if it's necessarily like what that means contractually or where, but he's certainly earning opportunities. He's been quite good. And he was again in this game. He doesn't need the ball to be effective with the Pacers in this group. And that stuns me because that is not what the player that I expect him to be. But you all remember how much I said I think he could be great in a summer league setting. And that very first game, he made me look stupid, and the rest he made me look smart. And now he's looking really good in a very different role for the Pacers. I don't know if this is why he began starting for this team, but that moment in Houston where he starts, maybe because Jarris Walker was sick and wasn't able to go through shoot around. I don't know if that's why, but it's fair to wonder. I mean, ever since then, he started and been awesome. And that's something they're going to keep turning to. Bench stunk. The bench stunk for the Pacers. Obi Toppin made 2 threes. That's huge because he's not been shooting well and had 5 boards. He was fine. McConnell, an off night with as many turnovers as assists. He was less effective. Moses Brown was 1 for 3. They couldn't even go back to him. This was not a matchup for him. Jarris Walker made his only shot but had no other stats in this game. And Johnny Furphy, despite me thinking he did all right on the glass and spacing and all that in the last 2 games, did not look effective in this game at all. Obi Toppin was nice. They needed him to be backup 5 for a couple minutes in this game, and he did. But other than that, their bench was not effective, and they still got it done because they cleaned up the turnover problems. They defended the three-point line better, and their best players stepped up when it mattered. 9 and 10 Pacers, chance to get to 500 again on Friday. Can they do it? That's not a high bar. They shouldn't be happy with that, but a chance to get back there after how they played early, they'll take it. They need to play well. I'll be there, and we'll have a podcast right after, right here on Locked On Pacers. Tomorrow we will too. I don't know what I'm going to talk about on Thanksgiving, but I have a pretty good idea. We're probably going to dive into a bunch of on-off numbers. We're going to dive into the NBA Cup, the Pistons, and all sorts of other stuff because we're almost at the 20-game mark, which is when stats start to stabilize a little bit. Hope you guys enjoyed today's show in this new goofy setting that will be gone again tomorrow. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers. I'm on Twitter at Tony R. East. This podcast is there at Locked On Pacers. I'm on Blue Sky at Tony R. East as well. Sorry, my Blue Sky people. I've been neglecting you. Back tomorrow, like I said, talking some on-off numbers, diving into some early season Pacers numbers. I'm not going to have a guest. I'm not going to bother anybody on Thanksgiving. But till then, everybody have a wonderful day.